Hello! Today I'm going to read a Thomas the Tank Engine story, but it's not about Thomas, it's about, do you know who that is? It's Gordon, and this says, Gordon the Big Engine. Big Engine. This is a story about Gordon the Big Engine. He was a very proud engine who always thought he knew best. But then one day, something happened to make him realise otherwise. Find out, shall we? Gordon was always boasting and telling the other engines how to behave. One day he was showing off to Edward. "You watch me this afternoon as I rush through with the express. That will be a splendid sight for you when you're shunting trucks." And before he puffed away, Gordon said, "Don't play around with the trucks, Edward. It isn't wrong, but we just don't do it." So, there they are. Gordon, looking very pleased with himself, and Edward, looking a little puzzled. What does Gordon mean? Well, Edward ignored Gordon. It was fun playing with the trucks. He came up quietly behind them and gave them a push. Then he stopped suddenly, and the silly trucks bumped into each other. "Oh!" they cried. "What's happening?" Edward played until there were no more trucks to move, and then he stopped to rest. Well, I think Edward's a little bit of a bully. I'm not quite sure I like that. But there he is, pushing the trucks about. Suddenly, Edward heard a whistle. It was Gordon, and he was very cross. Instead of pulling nice, shiny coaches, he was pulling lots of dirty old coal trucks. "A goods train," he grumbled. "The shame of it." Gordon went slowly past with the trucks clattering behind him. Edward laughed and went to find more trucks. So, no shiny bright carriages on the express then. There's Gordon pulling all those coal trucks. Edward laughed and went off to find more trucks. Did I read that? No. But soon there was trouble. A porter came and spoke to Edward's driver. "Gordon can't get up the hill," he said. "Will you take Edward to push him, please?" Well, Edward found Gordon halfway up the hill, and his driver was very cross with him. "You're not trying," he shouted to Gordon. "I can't do it, I can't do it," replied Gordon. "The silly coal trucks are holding me back." Because I would think that coal trucks are very, very heavy. There he is. It's Gordon looking not so pleased with himself. Edward came up behind Gordon's brake van, ready to push. Now then, this is interesting because my daddy, who would be your great-granddaddy, used to be a guard on a train, and he would be in the brake truck. So there's a truck just like your granddad's. Your great-granddad's brake truck. And there's the guard. Isn't that interesting? "You'll be no use at all," huffed Gordon. "You wait and see," replied Edward. The guard blew his whistle, and Gordon tried to pull forward as Edward pushed him as hard as he could. "I can't do it, I can't do it, I can't do it," puffed at Gordon. "I will do it, I will do it, I will do it," puffed Edward. Edward pushed and pushed with all his strength, and before long, Gordon was at the top of the hill. "I've done it," he said proudly, forgetting all about Edward pushing behind. and Gordon ran on to the next station without stopping to say thank you. I think these trains need to learn a few manners. But the Fat Controller didn't forget to say thank you to Edward, and the next day he was given a beautiful coat of blue paint with bright red stripes. Everybody's favourite colours. There he goes. He's looking very happy again, isn't he? Story carries on. Oh, look! Night time in a shed. You see the big full moon? How many trains can you count? Well, I should say how many engines. It's the right word to use, isn't it? Yes, you know, don't you? 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, Gordon hadn't learned his lesson. He still boasted to the other engines about how to behave, but now it was Henry's turn. Henry whistles too much, said Gordon. Respectable engines don't whistle loudly at stations. It isn't wrong, but we just don't do it. Poor Henry felt sad. I'm looking for the sad engine. It must be Henry, and I think it's this one on the end. Does he whistle too much? I didn't know that. Never mind, whispered Percy. I like your whistling. The next morning, as Gordon left the shed, he called to Henry, Goodbye, Henry. Be sure and remember what I said about whistling. Well, later that day, Henry took a slow train to Edward's station. Hello, Henry, said Edward. I was pleased to hear your happy whistle yesterday. Thank you, Edward, smiled Henry. Shh, can you hear something? Edward listened. Far away, but getting louder and louder, was the sound of an engine's whistle. So here's Henry and Edward listening out for that whistle. I wonder if it could be whistling. I think it might be Gordon. What do you think? Is it Gordon? Well, it sounds like Gordon, said Edward, but Gordon never whistles like that. But it was Gordon. He came rushing down the hill at a tremendous speed. Gordon's whistle valve wouldn't close, and he was whistling fit to burst. He screamed through the station and disappeared. And there he is, and you can tell how fast he's going by the stream, the smoke coming out behind him, and his bright red face. I think he's a bit embarrassed because he told everybody not to whistle. So he should be. Oh, yes, look, you can just see there. The corner of the signal box. Again, your great-granddad used to work from one of those for a long time. Well, said Edward, looking at Henry, it isn't wrong, but we just don't do it, chuckled Henry, and Edward laughed. Meanwhile, Gordon screeched along the line. People came out of their houses. Fire engines set off to find the fire, and old ladies dropped their parcels in shock. I don't like that. I'm an old lady and I don't drop parcels in shock. The noise was awful. Porters and passengers held their ears, and the Fat Controller held his ears too. Take him away, he bellowed, and stop that noise. Poor Gordon. There he is, and there's the Fat Controller getting a little bit cross. He whistled as he crossed the points. He whistled into the siding. Gordon was still whistling as the last passenger left the station. And then 2 fitters climbed aboard and knocked Gordon's whistle valve back into place. And at last there was silence. Can you see them there? Knocking the whistle valve. It was stuck open. So when it's open, it's a whistle. When it's closed, silence. Gordon slunk into his shed. He was very glad it was empty. He didn't want anyone to make fun of him. Later that evening, the other engines came back. "It isn't wrong," murmured Edward, "but we just don't do it." And all the engines laughed apart from Gordon. From then on, Gordon was a much quieter, humbler engine. Well, for a few days anyway. There they are, they're all getting ready to go to bed. And the last page usually has the station on it. Let's see what we can see. Yes, there is. That's the end of the story. Love you lots.